Guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Angie. If you don't know me, welcome. So for today we are going to be doing a recap of something I have actually watched before. Drum roll please. The Vampire Diaries. Yes, today we are going to be doing a recap of the Vampire Diaries. That is a series that I have watched before. So allow me to elaborate to you very well. Very well. Just stay tuned and enable me to elaborate for you the story. I hope you enjoy it. Let's get right into it. Yes. So first we start off with the first season. There's this girl, the main character, the protagonist. Her name is Elena. She has just lost her two parents. She had gone to a party, and during that party she got like a little bit drunk and she couldn't go back home. So the parents offered to go for her. On their way back they get into an accident. So after they get into an accident, they die. So Elena's mother had a sister. The sister's name is Jenna. So Jenna is essentially a university student still. She hasn't completed her school. She's the one who is left as the guardian of the two, Elena and Elena's little brother, Jeremy. So at this phase, as it is shown, Jeremy is like rebelling and kind of finding that way to move on from his grief, which Elena obviously does not support, being the older sister. So she tries to keep him in line. The parents had died like a summer ago. So they come back to school. They're trying to adjust back to school. So Elena had just broken up with her ex-boyfriend Matt. So Matt is still hung up on her. Matt had a best friend called Tyler. So Matt and Tyler are the jocks of the school, those big boys, yeah, he's one of those, they're one of those boys. So Tyler is more of a douchebag. If douchebag had a face or a name or was a person, I will give this to Tyler during the first season. But boy, does he undergo character development. Anyway, they go back to school. They start adjusting. So Matt is still hung up on Elena. Growing up, Matt and Elena were like this couple who are meant to be together. So after the parents died, she just didn't feel it right anymore to be dating Matt. Elena has two best friends, Caroline and Bonnie. So Bonnie, this girl right here, Bonnie is just discovering that she has some magical powers, some mysterious powers, where she's lifting feathers with her hands. She's so happy about it, and she's so close to Elena. At this first season, Bonnie is a yapper girl. She's giving yapper girl energy. Although I didn't really like her character in the first season, she was kind of being weird, but okay, not being weird, but there's this feel about her that I didn't exactly like. It wasn't my favorite, but she becomes one of the most powerful and one of the most admirable characters to me as the show goes on. Just in the first season, I feel like her story wasn't properly written. Then we have Caroline. Caroline is also Elena and Bonnie's best friend, though Caroline is more apart from them. She's like one of the cool girls. She's a cheerleader. But then Boy is that girl insecure. If insecure was a person, she was so insecure. She's so all over the place. Her, Bonnie, and Elena are best friends. Let's now move on to the peak of the story. So there are two brothers, Stefan and Damon. As the show starts, Stefan is introduced into the show. Stefan is this vampire. He was born in this town, so he's back to his hometown. But the reason he's back for his hometown is, oh my goodness, just stay tuned to hear the reason he's back. So he comes back to this hometown, famously known as Mystic Falls. He comes back to Mystic Falls, his hometown, and goes to live with his uncle. So Stefan is a vampire. We know nothing about him. We don't know anything about Stefan. We don't know if he has siblings. We know nothing about him. So he comes and joins Elena's school, and he's in his monologue. He's saying that she looks exactly like her. She looks exactly like somebody from his past. I had to see her. That's why I came. So he He's essentially coming to the school just for Elena, and as he's entering, he mind controls the secretary or the person to let him get enrolled into the school. So he gets enrolled into the school, and then he meets Elena. So during the first day of school, Elena, Jeremy, and their aunt are preparing. So Jeremy, and he's now into drugs and doing all those things. So while they are at school, Stefan joins the school, and Elena sees Jeremy having some drugs, so she follows him into the bathroom and confiscates his things, right? On her way out, she bumps into Stefan, and that is where the story begins. Later in the story, they introduce Damon as this bad character who apparently is also a vampire just like Stefan, and he comes saying he has come to destroy Stefan's life because he had promised him an eternity of misery. So you get that Stefan is not exactly happy to see him. Since they're vampires and they drive from drinking blood, Damon comes into town and starts drinking blood and killing people. So there are a core family in this Mystic Falls called the Founders Council. So this council has the original families, which are Elena, goes by Elena Gilbert, Caroline Forbes, Bonnie Bennett, Matt Donovan, Stefan Salvatore, Damon Salvatore, Tyler Lockwood. So the Lockwoods, the Gilberts, the Salvatores are part of the Founders Council. You get what I'm saying? So they're in the Founders Council and they know about vampires. So they try to protect Mystic Falls from the vampires, because back in the 19th century, in 1864, there were a group of vampires who were found and burnt in a church. So the council is trying to keep Mystic Falls safe, and the council has been going on over the years. It's something that has been passed down during the centuries. So they try to keep everything safe. So Jeremy, Elena's brother, apparently had been hooking up with Matt's younger sister. Matt's sister's name is Vicky. So Vicky is ashamed to be seen with Jeremy because she feels like she's older than him and people will talk. And also, considering the fact that Elena and Matt dated, it will be weird for the both of them to date. She's so hung up on Tyler, who's this douchebag, as I said, who keeps treating her the way he likes. He keeps mistreating her, you know. When Damon comes, he's trying to cause mayhem, he's trying to cause havoc. He turns Vicky into a vampire. Yes. So after he turns Vicky into a vampire, there's a lot of stuff that happens there, but Vicky dies. By this time, Elena had started learning about vampires. How Elena learned about the vampires, she had started seeing some things that were weird in Stefan, like how he got hurt and he healed immediately, how he saw their names at there's this council meetings that happen every year. So she saw that Damon and Stefan's name were there, and so their photo, and so that they had not aged a day. Apparently, even the uncle that they were living with, that is Stefan and Damon, the uncle was not their uncle. He was a descendant of them, so he was actually calling Stefan uncle and not the other way around. So she learned that he was a vampire, but she loved Stefan, so they had a quarreling about it, but she accepted him and they continued falling in love. Then after Vicky died, Jeremy met this girl. The reason Damon was back in town actually was because he was back for Katherine. Katherine was one of the vampires that died in 1864. But the plot twist is Katherine dated both Damon and Stefan. So since she was dating both of them, they both loved her, but Damon never moved on over the centuries. Yes, torturing Stefan was one of the reasons he came, but the main reason why he came back was because he wanted to rescue Katherine. So after they were burnt in the church in 1864, the church was sealed by a group of witches. Bonnie comes out and figures out her powers. Her grandmother helps her. So she comes and learns that she's a witch. The people who were locked in the church were locked by a witch, so they needed somebody who was a witch to rescue them. So Bonnie detests Damon and didn't want to help him in any way. They had planned actually to trick him. So Damon came back so that he can find a witch. Since the place that the vampires was sealed shut by a witch, they needed somebody who could break off the curse, because not all the vampires died. They were just kept in the church and Damon knew that Katherine was in the church, so he wanted to go and save her. But in the process, he keeps falling in love with Elena. So this is when history starts repeating itself. Damon, Elena, and Stefan, they get caught up in this love triangle. She becomes so evil and she almost kills Jeremy, of which his father killed. After he's killed, Jeremy is devastated, and Elena, since the vampires can control people and make them forget and do things, asks Stefan to help wipe Jeremy's memory, so that he can just think that Vicky went out of town and he can be able to move on with his life. But the problem was that okay, sorry. The problem was that Stefan is a reaper. For those who haven't seen the show, a reaper means a person who is an alcoholic but of blood, a vampire who can't control it. When he starts drinking, he can't stop drinking. He drinks and drinks and drinks and can wipe out even an entire village. So since this was the issue, he started controlling himself by taking animal blood. So he takes animal blood, and that's what he survives on. So he doesn't have his full strength as a vampire. He can't mind control people properly. So Elena has to ask Damon, and she asks Damon, and he wipes off Jeremy's memory, and he forgets that Vicky was a vampire and what had happened and that he had died, until later Vicky's body is found and they know that she had died. Jeremy later on meets this girl vampire called Anna, who they start having a romantic relationship with. But Anna was only using Jeremy. Since Jeremy was a Gilbert, the ancestor used to read some journals about what had happened to the vampires, because he was there during the 1864 fire. So she wanted some information about it. So she started investigating Jeremy and getting to be his friend, but fell in love with him in the process. The only reason she was doing this was because she wanted to rescue her mother, who was caught in the 1864 fire. Her mother was Katherine's best friend. Tyler used to treat Vicky so badly. He used to be so ashamed to be seen with her. He used to hook up with girls. He used to treat her the way he likes. But Vicky used to just love Tyler regardless, until when she came and took her stance and started loving Jeremy. That caused a big rift between Tyler and Jeremy, because Jeremy actually really loved Vicky, and he felt like Tyler was only using her and couldn't see her worth. So Tyler was a douchebag in that instance, in that also when the mother of Matt came back into town, Matt had so much in his shoulders. He used to work to be able to pay his rent and his fees, and the mother will disappear, and Vicky would also disturb him, because Vicky used to do drugs, Vicky used to be irresponsible, Vicky used to run around. So when Matt's mother came back into town, they went into a party, and guess what happened? Tyler hooked up with Matt's mother. How embarrassing is that? Later down the road, Damon comes to find out that Katherine wasn't actually in the tomb, and it was a huge mistake. Started covering up his tracks and not causing so much trouble. But the fact that I really hated about Damon was how he misused Caroline, because he used to use her badly and tell her things and manipulate her, which was so bad in his part. Damon started falling in love with Elena, and the season ends when he kisses Elena on the porch, later to find out that the person he had kissed was Katherine instead. So Katherine comes back to the movie. That's the end of the season 1. Moving on to the second season. So the second season is also a beautiful season, and in this season, Elena becomes more active in the supernatural world. Learn more about Katherine, where she comes from, how she's connected to Elena. Apparently, Katherine had a child who had a child who had a child, who eventually Elena came to be born, becoming an exact replica of Elena. So Katherine, since she also dated both brothers, she apparently loved Stefan so much more. So she's back to reunite with Stefan, and she tries to get in between their relationship, telling them to break up and threatening to kill Elena if not, or her family. They come and introduce the originals, Elijah and Klaus. Oh my god, they act so good in the second and the third season. until they are given their own spin-off show called The Originals. You should check that out too, or stay tuned, or comment down below if you want me to do a rundown of Originals as well. I'll be glad to do it for you. Anyways, they come into town. Elijah comes, so there is this curse of the sun and moon. We get to learn that Tyler is actually a werewolf. We learn this when Tyler's uncle Mason comes back to town, but Tyler doesn't know. But we see something supernatural about the uncle, in which they start to dig in and find out that Tyler is actually a werewolf, a new supernatural creature that we knew nothing about in the first season. So that's why he's usually having such anger issues, and the only way to trigger the werewolf curse was if somebody dies by your hand and you have the werewolf gene, you automatically turn into a werewolf. So Tyler activates it and he becomes a werewolf. And I feel after he becomes a werewolf, he actually killed someone accidentally. But after he becomes a werewolf, he grows so much. He becomes such a strong character. He stops being such a douchebag and starts feeling more. Bonnie gets to explore her powers. She thrives. She starts knowing about spells and everything, and even helped. Jeremy actually died at one point and came back to life in that season due to Bonnie's help. Bonnie and Jeremy started dating, and there was this sun and moon cast that I was talking about, where the originals basically are the oldest vampires, the first vampires to ever be created. From them, all vampires are born. So the originals come, and there's introduction of the first vampire known as Elijah, a very noble man, a man of his word, a very trustworthy man who wanted the death of his brother Klaus, because the brother used to dagger the siblings with knives into their hearts and keep them preserved. Originals can't die, so he used to keep them preserved and keep them in coffins and carry them around. Elijah really wanted his family, so he wanted to finish off his brother so that he can be able to get his family. Elijah double crosses Elena and her team, and in the process Jenna dies. It was so painful. Jenna becomes a vampire. She had just gotten to learn about vampires, and I can't believe I forgot to mention this character, Alaric. Alaric was such a nice guy. I liked him. His character was so good. So Alaric was dating Jenna. His wife had died. So after she had died, she started dating Jenna, and he knew that the wife had been killed by a vampire, which was Damon for that matter. But it was a whole misinterpretation, because the wife didn't actually die. She actually wanted to be turned into a vampire, and she got turned into a vampire. And the biggest plot twist is when we find out that the ex-wife was Elena's mother. Yeah, he was Elena's mother, and apparently Katherine's very close friend. Also, John, it will be a shame not to mention him. He comes into the series. He was Elena's father's brother. Yeah, Elena's uncle essentially. But he was actually Elena's real father. So Elena was not a real Gilbert. She was adapted into the family, you see. So when Jeremy knows, it's actually a very wholesome moment. He doesn't take it any badly. He's like, you're my sister no matter what. John comes into the movie. He causes havoc a little bit and makes the council know that not the council, but essentially Caroline's mother, that there are vampires in town. Also, before I forget, as Katherine turns Caroline into a vampire. But she apparently takes that so well. She controls herself so well. She learns how to do things so well. And she grows so much as a character. She stops being so insecure. She becomes one of the best characters in the show. She gets so strong. I really loved her character development. Her mother was a police in the Mystic Falls. And being a police, she never used to get along with her mother that well, but I feel after she became a vampire, they started getting along more. And the mother was in the council and was so against the vampires and was almost even killing her own daughter when she found out, but they come to agree and it becomes a really wholesome moment between the two. Matt gets to learn about the vampires. At the moment he was dating Caroline, but he doesn't handle the situation as best, but he learns about it, tells the mother, and he eventually comes to know about the supernatural world. Tyler starts turning into a werewolf. During the process, it's so hard for him, it's so painful for him, but Caroline holds his hand through the process, assures him it will be okay, and from that they become very good best friends until when they start dating and have a really good relationship. Then we have, might I say, one of my favorite seasons, the third season. The third season was so much drama between the love triangle. Oh my goodness. We learn more about the originals. All the siblings come into play. Apparently, the originals have a sister called Rebecca. Rebecca had a thing for Stefan. But the second season ends so badly when Klaus realizes that he can turn people who are werewolves into both werewolves and vampires, essentially known as hybrids like him. So after he knows this, he knows the only way, according to the spells he is able to create these people, is through using Elena's blood. So learn about the story of the original siblings. This is where Damon, the love triangle, becomes so toxic, because the second season ends with Klaus forcing Stefan to turn off his humanity, which is essentially something that the vampires can do. They can turn off the part of them that feels, the part of them that makes them human, the part of them that makes them care about things. So Stefan turns it off. He drinks human blood, which is very bad for him because it risks him being a reaper once again. In the first season, Damon was really wanting that, but later he doesn't really like that at all, because he tries at some point to make Stefan be able to get used to human blood so that it doesn't affect him as much, and he does, but it doesn't work out so good. So in the third season, there's the Mystic Falls ball. Stefan disappears off with Klaus because Klaus wants Stefan to be part of his team. He does all of this because he wanted to save Damon and Elena. Because in the last episode of the season 2, so we come and find out Damon is actually not that bad, because there's a character named Rose who usually bonds so much with Damon, and we see his soft side, the part that cares, that he's actually not as ruthless as he portrays himself to be. And Elena learns this about him. So we learn that Rose is bit by a werewolf, and we learn that a werewolf bite for a vampire is very legal and there's no way of survival. So she dies, and after Jenna dies, Damon is bit by a werewolf. He's bit by Tyler, because Tyler was turned into a werewolf, into a hybrid, by Klaus. So he feels like his loyalty is to Klaus, even if he doesn't want to do the things that he's being told to do. So he bites Damon, and Damon is about to die. But then they come and find out that the cure to a werewolf's bite is Klaus's blood, the original hybrid. Also, during the second season, I forgot to mention, apparently Katherine had been running away from the originals for 500 years. So she was so afraid of Klaus, so Klaus had her in his power, which made her lay off the Salvatores for a bit. She went a bit off from the story. When Elena thought Damon was going to die, she kissed him. She kissed him on her deathbed, and that's how the season ended. So in the third season, after Stefan is gone, their love story starts to bloom. Tyler starts struggling to break away from Klaus's impulse, and he grows so much, and he comes and loves Caroline. Elena even kisses Damon, not once but twice. And since Stefan had disappeared off with Klaus, they really bond over looking for him, and she even in the process kind of almost gives up on him. Elena and Stefan have their biggest fallout when Stefan tries to run Elena off the bridge that her parents died from, and she doesn't really like that very much, so it causes them to drift. And it ends the season ends with Elena and Damon, Elena and Matt drowning, and essentially Stefan was the one who arrived first at the scene, and asked Elena asked Stefan to save Matt. So she dies, but she's saved in the hospital by ingesting Damon's vampire blood. Then in the fourth season, she wakes up a vampire. So after Elena becomes a vampire, she doesn't want to become a vampire. Obviously, it's not something she's ever wanted. She's dated Stefan, but she's never wanted to be a vampire. So she feels like Stefan wants to fix him, and during that period, she falls in love with Damon. And then they learn that there's something called the sire bond, where you do whatever the person who turned you wants you to do, but that usually happens on rare occasions, usually when in love with the vampire before they turned you. You see, so you do things in that you feel like would please the person who turned you into a vampire. So she becomes sad to Damon, which is eventually solved when they learn that there's a cure for vampirism. Elena usually insists on dating Damon. Damon is so happy to finally come and date Elena. Then when they learn about the cure, Stefan gets hope again that maybe if Elena becomes human again, she might come back to her senses. The notion of being sad to Damon will end, and she will realize that maybe she's still in love with him. So they learn that the cure is buried with this immortal being called Silas. So Silas is he is the exact replica of Stefan. So you see the way Katherine is for Elena, that's Silas for Stefan. So Silas was the original, like the person who originally looked like that. So Silas had a lover named as Amara. Amara looked exactly like Elena. So together, they fell in love, but they didn't die. Silas was essentially supposed to marry a woman by the name Ketsia. Ketsia was a very powerful witch, but since Ketsia made a potion that will make her and Silas become together forever. But Silas, since was in love with Amara, she took the potion and gave the other half to Amara, so they could remain immortal together. And then Ketsia was so angry about that, so she made a cure that could kill them, but she died and went to the other side of the world. So she wanted revenge for what happened. Silas is portrayed as this powerful creature who disturbs them for a long time because he can control people's mind. And when they start looking for this cure, Bonnie bonds with this professor called Professor Shane. This Professor Shane apparently was being controlled by this Silas, so he makes Bonnie tap into very dark magic where her father is not okay with it. I forgot to mention Bonnie's mom comes to the show around the second season, and they bond a little, but then she dies. Bonnie's mother had abandoned her when she was little, so she had this bitterness, but when she died, at least they got to bond a little. So in this season, Bonnie's father also dies, which was so painful. I feel like they could have done Bonnie justice, because I feel like her character undergoes the most throughout. So as Bonnie bonds with Shane, they find the cure, but then Jeremy dies in the hands of Silas. Katherine makes Jeremy die, and Bonnie tries to save Jeremy, and she goes down that dark path and she dies. Bonnie actually dies, but she's okay, kind of partially dead. She doesn't tell anyone she died. She gets this 1 minute to say goodbye to everyone this one day, but then she disappears and she never tells anyone that she's dead. So when Jeremy is brought back to life, he can see the dead. So he's the only one who can communicate. So he can see Bonnie, and he texts using Bonnie's phone and lies that he's home with his parents, with his grandmother. She had gone to visit some relatives. So that was yeesh. Season 5. I'm sorry. Anyway, now to season 5. Elena and Caroline go to this Duke University and they start their university life. They think Bonnie is still okay. They keep on calling her and wondering what's going on. Tyler and Caroline are still broken up. Tyler has to go, he says he goes to make himself stronger and tries to get away from doing whatever Klaus is born to him. Damon and Elena's love flourish. I'm telling you, they flourish. Damon becomes so responsible that Elena even leaves him in charge of the brother, making sure that the brother goes to school and everything. Elena goes to university. She enjoys being, I'm telling you, season 5, Elena thrived. She changed her hairstyle. She became so mature. She was amazing. I loved her season 5 self. Her hairstyle changed. She had this aura, this joy, this need to become to have a fun university experience, which was amazing. And so Silas, in the 4th season, during the finale, they thought that they killed Silas, but instead Silas killed Damon. So he was passing across as Stefan. Instead, he locked Stefan into a coffin and he drowned into a box kind of thing, and he drowned over and over and over again. And it felt like he could kind of channel Elena, because Elena started having dreams about Stefan, and Katherine also was having dreams about Stefan, because from Silas and Amara, their descendants kept on getting together, like Katherine and Stefan. There was so many versions of Elena and Stefan in other worlds that kept getting together, so they used to get dreams regarding it. But then they come and find out about him, and he is saved. And when he's saved by Ketsia, and Ketsia, he's saved first, and then Ketsia uses him for to make Silas die, because he kind of has a relation to Silas. Stefan is saved, but then his memory gets lost, so he doesn't remember anything about his relationship with Elena and the relation to Damon, until when he's told about it, and he actually feels bad once again, because we never got to see the reaction of him not dating Elena anymore. Then there's introduction of these characters known as the Travelers, with the leader known as Marcos. So there's some vampires who are usually trapped in Mystic Falls, and they can't be able to move, so they get into people's heads and live their lives and lock out the people from their own bodies. So they try to relieve themselves from this curse. They even end up eventually moving the whole town. Then we get to learn that Katherine had a thing for Elijah, and since she had a thing for Elijah, she tries to take the cure. She tries to steal the cure from the Salvatore so that she can give it to Klaus, because Klaus didn't want anything that could threaten him being immortal. So she starts looking for the cure, but then ends up giving it to Elijah as a sign of her love. But then they leave the series to go start their own show. Elena and Katherine have a fight. Elena shoves the cure into Katherine. Katherine becomes human. Then she comes and steals Elena's body. I have never been so pissed off by a show, because it goes on for almost a whole season with them not knowing that was Katherine. She just enjoys being loved. She wears her clothes. She breaks up with Damon. She starts seducing Stefan. It's a whole mess. But she eventually dies, and Elena gets back her body. And then we get to see about Kai, who was this witch who the only way he could access magic was by getting it from somewhere else, maybe for example a vampire or anything that has any magical entities. And he was so mean. He was such a psychopath. I really loved his character, by the way. He was top notch. He was one of the most ruthless vampires in history, which made him a very interesting thing to watch. Also, we learn about Enzo. Enzo comes into the show. He was this vampire who Damon was captured a long time ago for 5 years, and experiments were run on him, and he was kept in a cell next to Enzo, and they became very close friends. But Damon ended up betraying him to die, but he actually didn't die. So he comes back. He comes back into the show. By then, Alaric had already died. Alaric and Damon come and become such good best friends. But then Alaric died. So Enzo comes into the show. Then Enzo becomes best friends with Alaric, and it's beautiful. But Alaric then comes back to life, and yeah. Also, Jeremy comes and becomes a hunter. FYI, I forgot to mention that in the 4th season, he comes and he becomes a hunter, a vampire hunter. They learn that he has a supernatural thing where he has the urge to hunt vampires, including his own sister, but he learns to control that urge. Yeah, but then Bonnie, who had come back to life, had come back as Anka, occupying Amara's space. You remember Amara? Amara was Silas's lover. So she was given the punishment by Ketsia to be an anchor between the real world and the other side, meaning everybody who died from the real world will pass and was supernatural will pass through her, inflicting the pain of how the person died as they pass on to the other side. So she had been in pain for so many years, and all she wished was to die. So, but Silas comes and dies, Amara comes and dies, and then Bonnie takes the role of Amara. And after she takes the role of Amara, she feels so much pain because people start passing through her, but she dies again. No shocker, but they help her, and then we learn about the Gemini Coven. We learn about this psychopath. This guy had killed his whole family, had killed his own family because he was a psychopath. So the people from his family, his coven, the witches usually have a coven of 12. So the people from his coven, which are known as the Gemini, bound him in a world known as the prison world, which looks exactly like this world, except that you can't move anywhere and you can't see anybody. So he was kept in this prison world where Damon and Bonnie eventually come and find themselves there. We also got to see Katherine's daughter, who helped Katherine to acquire Elena's body. The death of Damon hits Elena so hard. She is so devastated that she asks. Alaric comes back to life during this season, and he comes back to life as an original. So he has the power to control other vampires. Vampires can only control humans, but they can't control themselves. But originals have the power to control both humans and vampires. So Elena asks Alaric to make her forget all the memories she had with Damon. Then Damon comes back. When he comes back, he has bonded so much with Bonnie. They are best friends actually. So they come back, and Damon tries to get back tries to get back Elena, which is so beautiful because Elena falls in love with him again. And then we have the worst death of the show, Elizabeth Forbes, Caroline's mother. During out the season, Damon became Caroline's mother best friend. So they had bonded so much. She had bonded so much with her daughter, but then she got cancer. They tried to make her a vampire. It didn't work. They tried everything. They tried taking the magic away from him using Kai. Nothing happened. So it was so painful. She died, but it was a beautiful ceremony. Caroline sang. There were usually, in the Gemini, there's usually a set of twins who are born, where they introduced Joe, and was the brother's name? Liz and the brother. I've forgotten the name of the brother. So they introduced him and the brother. Liz, by the way, comes and dates Tyler. Tyler comes back into the show and they date for a while. So Liz and the brother, whose name I don't remember, when they were twins, and when Gemini twins reach the age of 21, they have to fight for their power, and it's a must, and the person who wins dies. The person who wins stays alive, and the person who is not alive dies. So Kai was very strong, and he was supposed to go against Joe. Joe is this character who is introduced, who starts dating Alaric, which is very beautiful because she becomes pregnant with Alaric's babies. So after she becomes pregnant with Alaric's babies, And since she's pregnant, she is a person who has been working as a doctor, who comes and becomes Elena's mentor, as Elena wants to become a doctor also in the future. So she becomes Elena's mentor and she enters into the show, and she's pregnant with Alaric's babies, right? Yes. Then she was also a twin to Kai, so she was supposed to merge with Kai. But since Kai was kept in the prison while he didn't age a day, he was he was the same age. He remained around 20. He remained around 20, 21 or 22, around those two ages. So he was supposed to merge with Joe, and the person who merges gets the power of the entire 12 covens, of the entire 12 witches in the coven. They become the head of the coven. So their father, was the person who was head of the coven, but then since Kai killed all his siblings, he bound Kai to the prison world. So since he bound Kai to the prison world and he was still young, he instead merges with Liz's brother instead of Liz. So they merge like that, but Kai wins and the other one dies, and it's a whole thing. Caroline starts developing feelings for Stefan. Stefan starts developing feelings for Caroline. Stefan wants to become human, so he tries to figure out how he's going to live as a human and things like that. And then the worst thing happens. Elena goes out of the show. She goes out of the show, I'm telling you. And I loved her so much. So she falls into a sleep, which she falls into a sleep, and in the sleep it's her or Bonnie. When Bonnie wakes up, she dies, and when Bonnie dies, she wakes up. So Elena says goodbye to all the cast, and her goodbye to Damon was so beautiful. They danced away. It was so beautiful. Oh my goodness. But then she died, and yeah, and that was the highlight of season 6. They introduced the Salvatore's mother, the mother of Stefan and Damon. We see a glimpse of her. So yeah, so that's what they explore in the next season 7. As Elena goes into a sleep in the season 7, they try to find a way to wake her up, to no avail, and then they come with the heretics. So the heretics are a group of vampires who are also witches. So the head of the characters is Stefan's and Damon's mother, who they thought had died, who apparently had not died. And Enzo, we come to learn that Enzo kind of loved the mother, so she betrays the Salvatores for a bit to go for the mother, but the mother loved another man. And we get to learn about the heretics and their family and the way they work. And Stefan is now not interested in the supernatural world, but he finds himself there back because of Damon. Now Stefan is more invested with his relationship to Caroline. When during the season 6, when it ended, the babies that Alaric had, Alaric's wife Jo, Alaric's now new girlfriend Jo, dies. After she dies, she had the 2 siblings. So the Gemini, to protect the children, keep the children inside the womb of Caroline. So Caroline is essentially pregnant, which is a new thing in vampire history, because vampires can't have babies. So we get to explore that a bit. We see in these heretics, there's a heretic known as Valerie, who was Stefan's first girlfriend, who apparently was pregnant with Stefan's child, but miscarried because of Lily Salvatore, which is the Salvatore's mother's boyfriend. When he found out that she was pregnant, he hit her, and she miscarried the baby. She causes a fuss a little because essentially Stefan goes out of town with her and causes a strain in the relationship with Caroline. Caroline tries to raise the babies with Alaric, and it's a whole thing. And Damon starts to go back to his old self. He starts doing things so selfishly, and he struggles to become so morally upright again. Now on to the last season, the last season of this beautiful show, the season 8. So here we are introduced a character known as Cade, who is famously known as the King of Hell, and he makes he has two disciples, the sirens, Celine and Sybil. Sybil tries to get into Damon's head. Damon switches off his humanity, starts helping, killing people. And he does this with Enzo, who Enzo starts dating Bonnie because they bond so much. After they start dating with Bonnie, he has his humanity in check. He tries to stay sane. He tries to tell Damon to stop doing some things, but Damon is not, he has nothing to live for at this point. He has no Elena, he has nothing. So his humanity is off. He's killing people, and Enzo finds a way to get out, and Stefan is dropped in instead, and it becomes a whole thing. In this final season, there's hint of Katherine being back and being the person who rules hell after Damon and Bonnie are able to, and Stefan are able to end Kid. And Stefan get such a good love story, and they end up getting married. But their marriage is short-lived when Stefan dies, which is so bad. Caroline and Alaric were co-parenting, but they start getting issues, so Alaric takes more control over the children. Celine, who was the siren, had masked herself into being a babysitter for the children. So they come and find out of her true identity, her and Sybil. And essentially those two also are killed and are off the show. Bonnie and Enzo's love grow, but then Stefan comes and shuts off his humanity and kills Enzo, and Bonnie is left so devastated and makes Stefan human. So Stefan becomes a human. And the last episode, finally Elena returns. The actor who played the character had left for 2 whole seasons, so she comes back. There's a lot that happens. They come and find out that Matt is from the family of Matt have a power to ring a certain bell, and a lot happens in that season. So in the 8th season, Stefan essentially sacrifices himself for Damon, and Elena and Damon fall in love, and they have a happily ever after, and Elena pursues her career. And since Stefan dies, he's reunited with Lexi, but Damon and Stefan get united once again. Caroline just becomes a vampire and continues her life well, and Alaric comes to get a school, and after she gets a school, she is helped to run it by Caroline, and they get a very good donation from Klaus. And apparently Klaus, as he was leaving the show, it was revealed that there was a lady who had his child. So the child, spoiler alert, comes to join this school in the spin-off show. He comes to join the school, but then the school is opened under Stefan's name in the Salvatore boarding house. And then Jeremy comes and also helps from time to time in the Salvatore school. Bonnie goes on to leave the world, to show the world, to experience the world. Matt becomes a cop. Tyler died actually. He actually died in around the 6th season. He was killed. So him and Vicky, we see them smiling as they watch over Matt being happy that he got to become a sheriff in a good he became a good detective, because Matt never wanted to join the supernatural world, so he became a good human detective. And Katherine dies, so Stefan sacrifices himself and kills Katherine in the process. And yeah, so that was how the Vampire Diaries ended. If you loved the recap, you're welcome, first of all, and I'm so glad to do this for you. If you have any other suggestions on what you want to see next, kindly hit me up in the comment section. Till then, bye.